A lot of people right now would say that AEW in a bit of a down period. I would agree for the most part. You know, their pay-per-views, they seem to knock it out the park. But when it comes to weekly shows, more often than not, especially more recently, they've been they've been pretty mid. I'm not gonna lie. But in this video, I want to talk about kind of what's not working with AEW at the minute. So, I'm Leo. This is the Wrestling Retrospective, and let's talk about AEW. So, according to rumours, which I'm aware aren't always reliable, but stick with me, Rampage will cease to exist come the end of the year, which to me is kind of good. It makes sense. I don't watch Rampage, and all the stuff they put on there isn't the most top stuff it was back when it first started with the whole CM Punk stuff. You know, we've had matches like Bryan Danielson versus Minoru Suzuki over there, Danielson versus Kingston happened on Rampage. Some great tag team matches with the Lucha Bros and Jurassic Express happened when Rampage first started, but nowadays it's all like matches just because, or just thrown together for no real reason or stakes, or very rarely is there stakes. So yeah, for me it does make a lot of sense, but another show that needs a lot more tender love and care from AEW is Collision, in my opinion. Mainly because it doesn't feel as important as Dynamite, and there's nothing really on it that entices me to watch it all the time, or at least every week. Like, that only really happens when it comes to like special Dynamites, when they do stuff like Grand Slam, or you know, they didn't do Fyter Fest this year, but like when they do Fyter Fest episodes of Dynamite, but they also put it onto Rampage and stuff, all that kind of stuff. I think it's kind of for two reasons, really. I feel like on Collision there's a lack of storylines. Like, the only ones that come to mind to me at the minute are Hologram's Streak and whoever FTR are feuding with. So at the minute they've kind of got this thing going with the Outrunners, but you know, it just seems that FTR are the ones that are kind of Mister's Collision, kind of taking it from Punk and from Ricky Starks at one point. The other reason I would probably say is because I said they don't really give us a reason to watch Collision. There's like a lot of the time there's a lot of multi-man matches, you know, a lot of six-man tags or multiple six-man tags on some occasions. And I've only really noticed this when I started doing my articles on Collision that I do on the Wrestling For You website, where it's just lots of people just thrown on to Collision just because they want them to be on TV almost, but they don't give them actual feuds. They're just having random matches once every 2 weeks or something, which is fine, and people get to see the wrestlers they want to see, but they also want to see their favourite wrestlers in stories, building towards stuff, building towards championships. And we just don't get that on Collision. You know, I think I'd argue the biggest star we probably have on Collision more regularly is Mariah May, who will every so often go over to Collision and do maybe commentary, maybe have a match. She had a match with Anna Jay on Battle of the Belts only last night, but again, that was part of a separate show and was a special Collision going into Battle of the Belts type thing. So again, it can make sense. Again, Moxley was on it last night, but it was more to do with Battle of the Belts, whereas we don't see those kind of stuff happen on the regular for Collision, where the likes of John Moxley, the Elite, Okada I know has done one or two, but like we don't get them more regularly like we do on Dynamite. Like, when you tune into Dynamite, you're almost guaranteed to see the Blackpool Combat Club, you're guaranteed to see Moxley, you're guaranteed to see the Elite, you're guaranteed to see Mariah May, you're guaranteed to see Mercedes Moné. Like, all these big champions in the company all show up on Dynamite, but every so often turn up on Collision, which I feel like is the kind of wrong way to go about it. Now, I'm not saying that what we need is a brand split or anything like that. I'm just saying that with the amount of matches they want to put on pay-per-view, I think like it was something like 11. It seems to be the more common number for how many matches are on a pay-per-view. There's more than enough spaces to be able to build feuds on both shows separately, rather than like if something on Collision gets really big, it moves on to Dynamite. We kind of just keep it on Collision because it's a Collision thing almost. And it could just be people floating around or anything like that, but it's just like this feud is on Collision, this feud is on Dynamite. When it comes to an end, a new feud starts on Collision, and all that kind of stuff. And you know, like, I feel like that's what it's missing. It's just that it's got that lack of storyline. You know, I don't think I've ever found myself going, oh, I need to watch Collision because I need to see what this person's doing, because I know for a fact they're probably going to be on Dynamite and doing more impactful stuff on Dynamite during the week on Wednesday. So, yeah, I feel like that's kind of the first thing AEW need to kind of do, is kind of have, I'd say, okay, it's hard not to say like a brand split, but it's like, you know, have feuds specifically for each show, so then it makes people want to tune into both, instead of people wanting to only go on to Dynamite, only tune into Dynamite, but then like they might go to Collision if there's something worth watching, which most of the time there really isn't, which is a shame, really. Another reason I have for AEW kind of lacking in the minute is I would argue there is a lack of main event baby faces that are believable. Now, not to sound like a WWE shill or anything like that, but the fact that every champion in AEW at the minute is a heel kind of makes no sense to me. Like, I get the point of baby faces like chasing the championship, overcoming the heel. This is fine for like part of the roster, but if the whole, like, if every championship feud is doing that, then it kind of becomes a bit tedious. Like, because you're essentially telling, if you're going like stripping everything down to the basics, everything is telling the same story, which I feel like is a very, I wouldn't say lazy, but it's a very kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like a mediocre way of doing stuff. Whereas when you've got a mix of babyface and heel, you get the different kind of feuds throughout the shows. And we're kind of not just going to, we're not going to get that with these, because every champion is a heel. Personally, I'd put it on AEW just not having the mass amount of main event caliber babyfaces. Now, there are some like Swerve, Ospreay, Adam Cole, Jay White, I would argue are the 4 biggest babyfaces kind of name-wise on the roster. I mean, you've got Kenny Omega as well, but that's upon return, and trust me, when Kenny Omega returns, it will be to probably the biggest pop in AEW history, I assume. But again, that's still, we don't know when he's going to be back yet. I know that he's been doing stuff with Tanahashi, but I really don't know much about that, to be fair. But then, you know, before people, I don't know, it's kind of like, you know, we do have all these big baby faces, but they're all busy. Like, you know, you've got Swerve, who I assume, and I think most people assume, will be feuding with a heel Lashley at some point. Ospreay is feuding with Kyle Fletcher. Adam Cole's feuding with MJF. And then you've got Jay White, he's feuding with Hangman. So then they're all busy. So then who do you have take on the likes of Jon Moxley and Okada and Takeshita and all those guys? And I know, like, before people start coming at me in the comments, there are people like Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, and Daniel Garcia. But are these guys really main eventers right now? Because I would argue not really. You know, it's kind of, for me, it's due to having the correct and impactful build for them at the minute. Like, I mean, look at the last few weeks, for example. Darby Allin had a pay-per-view match with Brody King, which isn't, like, no offense to Brody King, but it's not going to get him elevated to a level of a main eventer. Like, I expected him to be doing much more when it came to Wrestle Dream. I even said it in my review for Wrestle Dream, that he should have had a bigger match on this show. Orange Cassidy, like, had the chance to be a main eventer and really stay in that position, especially after his few matches with Jon Moxley and the international title run that he had. I think it was his first run where he just like went on an absolute killing streak and getting loads and loads of wins. Like, if they had pushed him to the main event scene after that, he probably would be there now, but I don't think they've capitalized on that momentum at all, and that's kind of ruined him in a way. Like, the fact that he's now like technically feuding with Jericho again, doing the conglomeration, is pretty much holding him back, in my opinion. And, you know, now they want to be a leader of this like new babyface revolution against the BCC and the Elite. Makes sense for it to be Orange Cassidy. I'm just not sure how convincing that's going to be. And again, it's nothing to do with his character. I know that a lot of people would argue his character isn't main event level. I feel like he can get to that point. It's just a case of we have to build him up again, even though we had him in the perfect position a few months ago, if not this time last year. And then you've got Daniel Garcia, which, again, he had a chance to get to this point. He could have beaten MJF for All Out, and that would have skyrocketed him to the main event scene, but he lost to MJF because of contract stuff, which I think, like, if AEW were confident enough that they were going to re-sign Daniel Garcia, which they did, they probably would have had him go over anyway, but they didn't, so then he lost. Hopefully he gets his win back against MJF at some point, maybe at Full Gear. But yeah, that loss really didn't help him. So it kind of like, we've got like the potential to have big star baby faces. It's just a case of, and as I've said, massive build and impactful building up as well to get them to that point, which I feel like we're starting at the minute. But I just hope that it's pulled off in the right way, so then when Moxley does drop the title and Okada drops it and Takeshita drops it, or to probably babyfaces, that it all works out in a way that kind of makes sense, but also has the big moment feels that the company needs to be able to get people back on board with the company again. The final point I'll make, and it's probably the one I feel most passionately about, is the questionable use of the women's division, and especially Mariah May. Like, I don't understand where we're going with Mariah. It seems that they're kind of floundering her for a minute until Mina Shirakawa comes back from Japan, and then when Toni Storm comes back for her inevitable rematch at what I assume will be Grand Slam in Australia. But I just don't understand, or at least like it's not very clear anyway, why you wouldn't have her be having good feuds between those guys coming back. Like, we've had a literally just have random one-off feuds with the likes of Yuka Sakazaki, which lasted a couple of weeks. She had a small feud with Willow Nightingale, which again was only a few weeks. She had a one-off title defense against Nyla Rose with no build at all. And it's just that kind of, I don't know, it kind of just doesn't make, honestly, I don't want to keep saying it doesn't make sense, but like, you have this massive star who's arguably had the best built match on the All-In card. I know that the match probably didn't work out the way people wanted it to, and it wasn't the best match I feel like it could have been, but arguably if you look at all the build for the matches at All-In, that one was the best. And they really haven't done much with Mariah May since, other than have her just be there. Like, yeah, she's had these matches and they were very good, and they've had her go on commentary and she's very good on the mic as well, so it kind of works in that way. But like, I wanted to have feuds and like stuff that's worth investing in, which we're just not getting. And as I said, it feels like we're just waiting for Mina to come back from Japan, and then we'll have that for a little bit, and then we're going to wait till probably the start to mid-January when Toni Storm returns, and then they can build to their match at Grand Slam. And I'm sure those feuds are going to be absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait to see them go down. But it just doesn't seem to be that they want to put anyone in that position in case they get more over or something, and they would rather see that match than the one against Mina or Toni, which really doesn't make sense. They seem to be building something with Anna Jay at the minute. Anna Jay beat Mariah May for I think it was Mariah May's first loss in a very long time, if not for this whole year, on Battle of the Belts last night, which is good, and it's something worth investing in. Do I see Anna Jay beating her for the title? Absolutely not. But at least it's something to just have on TV for them to be doing as a feud, which I can't complain about. But then the match is in 2 weeks, so again, it's only going to be a 2 week build to that match, and then probably she'll move on to somebody else. I do find the same thing with Mercedes Moné. I would say the only difference is that Moné has been a very much fighting champion, which I was very surprised about. I thought that she was going to be incredibly, I don't want to say lazy, but a very part-time wrestling schedule for Mercedes Moné, but that simply hasn't been the case. But again, apart from the Britt Baker match at All In, she hasn't really had a feud that's properly building. Like, you could argue that the one going on at the minute with Chris Statlander is a decent feud, but then Statlander has actually turned her case more to Camille than she has Moné at the minute. So I don't know whether that'll lead to Moné or something. If Statlander beats Camille, then she gets Moné, which would make the most sense. But again, Moné has faced the likes of Emi Sakura, Sky Blue, Hikaru Shida twice, and Queen Amanata for the TBS Championship, and it's had next to no build. It's had a couple of weeks tops, and it doesn't make any sense why they're doing this to the women. Like, they talk about how AEW has one of the best women's division, and arguably on paper it is, but we don't seem to be doing anything storyline with them, or anything that lasts a long period of time since Toni Storm and Mariah May, which yes, arguably was the best women's feud AEW have ever done. but why not try and do more of that and kind of have people invest in the women's division more? Because again, we're getting to a point where women are kind of not the priority on the show. They never really have been in AEW, which is frustrating for me, especially with the talent they have. Like the fact that the women haven't main evented a pay-per-view yet, or I think they've main evented a few Dynamites, but I can't think of any of more recent times. Whereas WWE do have their women main event pay-per-views, whether it be NXT or main roster, and they definitely main event the weekly shows. Like the last match on SmackDown the other day was a women's match. It wasn't the main event overall, but the last match that everyone saw on SmackDown was a women's match. But yeah, it feels like neither champion is really affecting the way the women's division is being looked at, and that's not due to the women. That's due to just the booking in general. It doesn't feel like a priority when it should be, and yeah, it's just very frustrating in that way. And just like some more smaller examples. Gianna Perozzo's group. You know, we've seen Taya Valkyrie join, but we haven't really seen anything else of that much other than just backstage promos. Neither of them are actually wrestling or have in a while. The story with Penelope Ford and Jamie Hayter has taken a couple of, I think it's like just under 2 weeks to kind of get that started again, with Jamie Hayter and Penelope Ford having like it wasn't even a back and forth. Penelope Ford just explained why she attacked Jamie Hayter, and now they're going to have a feud, which is fair enough, and it gives Jamie Hayter something to do, but I expected a lot more for Jamie Hayter upon return, but I'm interested to see what Penelope Ford's going to be like upon return, because she wasn't used very well when she was there originally. Yeah, we see Anna Jay. She seems to be a face now, going from Mariah May, as I've kind of touched on a little bit. But then Anna Jay has also been the case of face, heel, face, heel, face, heel. They can't really decide what they want to do with her, which isn't great because she's such a big talent, and she's probably one of the most homegrown AEW women on the roster. So they should really be doing more with her. And then Marina Shafir, like arguably in the best position a woman could be without having a championship, and she doesn't wrestle. And it just doesn't make any sense. Like, I know that she did some stuff in Ring of Honor before the Blackpool Combat Club stuff, but since then she hasn't wrestled at all, when you could have her just destroying the women's division slowly. So then she's kind of taken over the women's division like Moxley's taken over the male division. But yeah, I don't know. Those are just a few examples of stuff that could be used better on AEW television. But for me, it literally comes down to one thing, and that is more priority on women's booking and more organisation when it comes to it as well. And the more they do that, the more that they'll affect the shows more, and the more people will get invested in the women's division and the women's stories, like they did with Toni Storm and Mariah May, like they did with Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. So there's been examples of it. If they just need to be more often, like they do with the men all the time, you know. But I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments of all my points, and kind of, do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there any big points I've missed? Why do you feel like AEW are in a rut at the minute? But yeah, I'll ask you to like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Thank you again.